What if I told you that one glass sitting right in your kitchen, right now, could turn a plant that refuses to bloom into one that explodes with flowers? No fancy fertilizer, no expensive store-bought formula, just one simple glass. I know what you're thinking. You've tried everything. More light, more water, even those overpriced bloom boosters from the garden store. And still, nothing. Just green leaves and silence. But here's the truth. Almost nobody tells you the secret to non-stop blooming isn't hiding in a plant shop. It's already sitting in your kitchen cabinet, and most people throw it away without a second thought. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's in that glass and exactly how to use it on any plant, flowering or not. So if your plant has been refusing to bloom, stay with me, because what happens next might completely change the way you care for it. Forever. Let's be honest for a second. You've probably stood in front of your plant more times than you can count. Just staring at it, waiting, hoping that maybe today, finally, you'll see a bud forming, and instead, just leaves. Green. Healthy-looking leaves, but no flowers. Month after month. So you start doing what most of us do. You water it a little more. Then you panic and water it less. You move it closer to the window. Then, further away, worried you're burning it. You buy a bottle of fertilizer with a flower on the label, because surely that one's made for blooming. Right, and still nothing changes. Here's what almost nobody tells you. The problem was never really about water, or light, or even fertilizer. The real problem is happening somewhere you can't see underground. In the root system, think about it this way. Imagine trying to breathe through a wet towel pressed over your face. That's exactly what's happening to your plant's roots when the soil is too dense, too compact, holding water for far too long. The roots are suffocating. They can't pull in oxygen, so they can't pull in nutrients either, no matter how much fertilizer you pour on top. And when the roots are struggling just to survive, blooming becomes the last thing on your plant's priority list. Flowers take enormous energy to produce. A plant fighting for oxygen underground simply doesn't have any energy left to spare on something as expensive as a flower. This is why so many of us end up frustrated, convinced our plant is simply not a bloomer when really, it's been quietly struggling beneath the surface the entire time. But here's the good news. Once the root system becomes healthy again, once it can finally breathe, everything changes. Growth speeds up. Leaves turn a deeper, glossier green. And eventually, blooming becomes possible again, because the plant finally has the energy to spare. So before we even talk about that one glass I mentioned, we need to fix what's happening underground first, because pouring any solution onto unhealthy roots is like pouring fuel into an engine that's already broken. It won't go anywhere. The fix isn't complicated, and it doesn't require anything expensive. In fact, it starts with something most of us already have, sitting in the kitchen. We just never thought to use it this way. So let's start where it actually matters most, at the roots. Because that magic glass, I promised you, it only works once the roots are ready to receive it. So, where do we actually start? Not with fertilizer, not with the magic glass, not yet. We start by giving the roots a fresh beginning. And that means repotting. I know repotting can sound intimidating, like something that might shock or even hurt your plant. But honestly, it's one of the kindest things you can do for it. Think of it as giving your plant a clean slate, a chance to breathe again after being trapped in old, blank, compacted soil for far too long. Start by gently easing the plant out of its current pot. Take your time here. This isn't a step to rush. Once it's out, take a good look at the entire root system. This is where the truth lives. Healthy roots are firm, pâles, and full of life. But you might also spot roots that are mushy, dark, or simply tired roots that have been struggling silently this whole time. Next comes a step most people skip, but it might be the most important one. Rinse the roots thoroughly under clean, running water. Wash away every bit of that old soil clinging to them. Why does this matter so much? Because old soil often hides more than dirt fungus. Bacteria, mineral buildup, all of it quietly working against your plant. Once the roots are clean, you can finally see clearly what needs attention. And your plant can finally start absorbing water and nutrients the way it's supposed to. After rinsing, resist the urge to immediately plant it back. Instead, set it somewhere dry and airy, and let those roots rest for a little while. Let the surface dry naturally. This small pause does something powerful. It lowers the risk of waterlogging, and it helps seal off any tiny wounds on the roots before fungus gets the chance to sneak in. I know it might feel strange, watching your plant sit there, bare-rooted, doing seemingly nothing. But this is exactly the kind of patience that separates a plant that thrives from one that just barely survives. While the roots are resting, here's something worth remembering. Every single plant you've ever struggled with probably went through some version of this overcrowded roots. Exhausted soil, no room left to grow. Resetting the roots isn't just a technique. It's giving your plant permission to start over. But resetting the roots is only half the story, because once they're clean, rested, and ready, that's exactly when the real transformation begins. That's when we introduce the one ingredient that changes everything, the magic glass I've been talking about since the very first second of this video. And trust me, once you see what's inside it, you'll never look at your kitchen the same way again. All right? This is the moment I promised you at the very beginning. The magic glass. And I have to be honest with you, when I first heard about this, I almost didn't believe it either. Because the ingredients are so simple, so ordinary, that it feels almost too easy to actually work. But once you understand what's happening inside that glass, it'll make perfect sense. The first ingredient is something sitting in almost every kitchen on Earth: rice. Just plain, ordinary rice. Now, rice isn't just empty starch. It actually contains natural B vitamins and trace minerals, and when it breaks down in water, it feeds the beneficial microorganisms living in the soil. Healthier microorganisms mean healthier roots, and healthier roots, as we now know, I mean a plant that finally has the energy to bloom. The second ingredient might surprise you even more: bay leaves. Yes, the same bay leaves sitting in your spice rack. Bay leaves carry natural essential oils and antibacterial compounds that quietly work to limit fungal disease around the roots. It's a small, simple ingredient, doing a surprisingly big job. So here's exactly how we bring this together. Add a few tablespoons of rice and a handful of bay leaves into a blender, and blend them until they turn into a fine powder. The finer the mixture, the easier it dissolves, and the more effectively your plant can actually absorb it later. Once it's blended, pour that powder into a clean glass. Add hot water, roughly 2 cups, to help release all of those natural oils and nutrients hiding inside. Stir it well until everything is fully combined. Then cover the glass and let it sit, untouched, for 1 full hour. That waiting hour matters more than it seems. This is when the hot water slowly pulls every bit of nutrition out of the rice and bay leaves, turning plain water into something your plant's roots have been quietly craving. After an hour, once the solution has cooled, strain out the leftover residue, keeping only the liquid. Dilute it with a bit more clean water. And there it is, your magic glass. Finally ready. Now comes the most satisfying part. Gently lower your plant's roots into this solution and let them soak for about 15 minutes. Just watch. You'll almost be able to imagine the roots drinking it in bed, slowly coming back to life. This single glass is doing more work than any bottled fertilizer ever could, quietly repairing, nourishing, and preparing your plant's roots for what comes next. But don't get too comfortable yet, because this is only the recovery phase. The real bloom explosion, that's still ahead of us. Now that those roots have had their 15 minutes soaking in that nutrient-rich glass, it's time for the step that brings everything together, giving your plant its new home. First, gently lift the plant out of the solution. Take a soft cloth or cotton pad and carefully pat away any extra moisture clinging to the leaves and roots. This isn't just about tidiness. Leaving water sitting on the roots for too long can quietly invite fungus in and after everything we've just done to protect those roots. That's the last thing we want. Now, let's talk about the soil. Because here's something most people get wrong without even realizing it. Not all potting mixes are created equal, and the wrong one can undo everything we just fixed. What we want is a mix of regular garden soil and coconut coir in equal parts 50-50. The garden soil brings natural minerals, the kind your plant needs to fuel new growth, but coconut coir is the real secret here. It holds just enough moisture to keep roots hydrated, while still leaving enough space for air to move through. Picture it like this. If the old soil was a wet towel suffocating the roots, this new mix is like giving them brand new lungs. Choose a pot with drainage holes at the bottom. This is non-negotiable. Without drainage, even the best soil mix in the world will eventually trap water and bring us right back to where we started. Layer a bit of that fresh soil mix at the bottom of the pot. Then, gently place your plant in the center, letting the roots spread naturally, not crammed or bent. Slowly add more soil mix around the roots, pressing gently with your hands as you go, just enough to hold the plant steady and upright. Once it's settled, take the remaining nutrient solution. Yes, don't waste a drop and pour it slowly around the base of the plant. This helps the new soil settle in evenly while giving the roots one final boost as they adjust to their new environment. Now, place your plant somewhere dry, airy, with gentle natural light. No direct harsh sun. Not yet. And here's the part that takes a little patience. Let it rest. Untouched. For about 3 days. No watering. No fussing over it. Just rest. I know it's tempting to want to do more, but this quiet period is exactly when the roots settle in and begin adapting to their new home. Rushing this step is one of the most common mistakes people make and one of the easiest to avoid. Your plant has just been given everything it needs to grow stronger than before. But growing stronger is only step one, because what comes next is what actually makes it bloom. Here we are, the chapter this entire video has been building toward, the one glass that turns a healthy plant into a blooming one, and the ingredient, something you probably already drink every single morning: coffee. I know it sounds almost too simple to be true, but coffee isn't just something that wakes you up. It actually contains nitrogen, along with small traces of potassium and magnesium. 3 things your plant needs to grow strong, stay green, and eventually produce flowers. Nitrogen especially plays a huge role here. It's one of the key building blocks behind lush, healthy growth. The kind of growth that eventually has enough energy left over to push out a flower. So once your plant has rested for those 3 days after repotting, and the roots have started settling into their new home, it's finally time to water it with clean water first, just to keep things stable. Then, after that initial recovery period, we introduce the Real Bloom Booster. Here's exactly how to make it. Take 1 clean glass, add about a tablespoon of coffee. That's it, just 1 tablespoon. Pour in roughly 2 cups of hot water and stir until the coffee fully dissolves. Cover it and let it sit for 1 hour, just like we did with the rice and bay leaf solution earlier. After that hour, once it's cooled completely, strain out the coffee grounds, keeping only the liquid. Dilute it with a bit more clean water and pour the finished solution into a spray bottle. Now comes the part I genuinely love watching. Spray the solution gently over the entire plant: the base, the stem, and especially the leaves. Don't rush this. Let it settle evenly, coating the surfaces fully, so your plant can absorb every bit of what's inside. Use this coffee solution regularly, and you'll start to notice something remarkable. The leaves deepen into a richer, glossier green. New shoots emerge stronger and faster, and the plant, overall, simply feels more alive than it has in a long time. But here's the part that matters most for what we've been chasing this whole video. This is the exact nutrient boost that gives your plant enough energy to finally push out flowers fuller, brighter, and far more abundant than before. One glass, one simple ingredient already sitting in your kitchen. And yet, it might be the single most overlooked trick in plant care. Because sometimes, the difference between a plant that simply survives and one that explodes with blooms really does come down to something this small. And what happened next? After using this for just 2 months, honestly, even I wasn't fully prepared for it. 2 months. That's all it took. 2 months ago, this plant looked tired, defeated, almost small leaves, slow growth, not a single flower in sight, just sitting there, surviving, month after month, with nothing to show for it. And now, honestly, it's hard to even believe it's the same plant. The first thing you'll notice is the leaves. They're no longer that pale, washed out green we started with. Now they're deep, glossy, almost shining under the light, the kind of green that tells you instantly, this plant is thriving, not just surviving. The new leaves coming in are noticeably larger than before, unfurling fuller and faster than anything we saw in the first few weeks. Then there's the stems, where they were once thin and a little weak, bending under their own weight. They're now thick, upright, sturdy, strong enough to support everything that's about to come. And underneath, hidden from view this entire time, the roots tell the real story. Pull the plant gently from its pot, and instead of the tired, struggling roots we started with, you'll find a dense network of healthy, white roots spreading confidently through the soil. This is the part most people never see, but it's the part that made everything else possible. Strong roots, strong plant. But let's be honest, none of that is really why you're still watching. You're here for the flowers. So, here they are. Not 1 or 2 scattered blooms, but flower after flower, opening one after another, almost like the plant simply couldn't hold them in any longer. The petals are thicker, fuller, brighter white than before, the kind of blooms that make you stop and look twice, and the stems holding them up, strong enough that the flowers stand tall and upright, instead of drooping under their own weight within a few days like they used to. This is exactly the transformation I promised you back at the very beginning of this video. Remember that one glass I mentioned? 2 simple ingredients, rice and bay leaves to heal the roots, and 1 tablespoon of coffee once a week to fuel the bloom. That's genuinely it. No expensive fertilizers, no complicated routines, just consistency and a little bit of patience. And here's what makes this even better. This isn't just for peace lilies. This exact method works on almost any plant that's struggling to bloom, because at the end of the day, every plant is fighting the same battle. Weak roots, low energy, no flowers. Fix the roots, fuel the bloom, and watch what happens. If your plant has been sitting there for months, refusing to flower, I promise you it's not broken. And it's definitely not hopeless. It's just been waiting for exactly this. So go ahead, grab that glass, and give your plant the one thing it's been missing this entire time. And that right there, that's the moment that makes all of this worth it. Because gardening was never really about soil, or water, or even fertilizer. It's about this exact feeling, watching something that was struggling, something you almost gave up on, come back to life. Right in front of you. Stronger, greener, blooming. Finally, after months of waiting. So, if you've been staring at a plant that just won't flower, wondering what you're doing wrong, please hear me. You're not doing anything wrong. You just hadn't found that one glass yet. Now you have. Try it this week. Just one glass on one plant and watch what happens. And I'd genuinely love to know, what plant are you trying this on? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one, and I'll be cheering for your blooms right alongside you. If this video gave you even a little hope for your plant, do me a favor, hit subscribe so you never miss the next trick. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, because sometimes the biggest blooms really do come from the smallest glass. I'll see you in the next one.